Up, cast and castaways. It's your boy D Bird, joined always with my co-host DJB. What's up, DJB?
Just enjoying a Sunday Eve. Just got done watching some Survivor. I'm really excited to talk with my buddy.
Heck yes. I'm really excited to gossip about all of these half-dressed people, all of the mud they caked on their face, all of the shenanigans and strategery. There's a lot that went down.
There was, and I will point out that Sue's mustache looked more powerful than ever with all that mud.
Power stash. Well, we'll get into it. As you know, we're here once again to talk about our favorite show, Survivor. And along with that, this is the 10th episode, Loyal to the Soil. Feels a little Nazi-esque, soil, blood, soil. Ugh.
Huh.
Little, a little tiki torchy. But
I didn't go Nazi on this one. I felt it was like an overly played. I would say a 50-year-old gentleman coming out of the clink would say something like "loyal to the soil."
That's probably even more apt. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wears his socks up, white socks up to his knees.
Yep. K Swiss. Yeah. He is
Yeah.
there.
So where we left off, Saul gets blindsided. Genevieve's plan works. Even she can't believe it. They all come back to camp, and immediately she starts apologizing to Teeny for leaving her out of the vote. Saying, it was actually kind of funny how she worded it as like, Teeny, I'm really sorry for leaving you out of the vote. This was all on me. Like, yeah, duh.
Yeah, who else are you going to blame? Teeny almost blamed herself, though. Like, that's her MO. Maybe she had to do that to save Teeny from herself.
Yeah, no, please put a bigger target on me, Teeny. Don't put it on yourself. Don't get mad at yourself and vote yourself out.
But that was the first time that Genevieve, like, we've been saying, Genevieve's behind it. She's got her hands in it. And she has been shrewd, calculated, cold-blooded. And this is the first time that you kind of saw that human side to her, which I thought was kind of refreshing, honestly.
Yes. It was kind of funny to see the cracks. And she's not like AI robot. She's like just, I'm going to slit anybody's throat. I don't care if it advances me one day further in the game. Teeny actually had a very funny response to Genevieve's apology, saying, "You were so close to accomplishing the goal of making me look stupid for no reason." And no, there's a very good reason. You would have fucking told Saul. It wouldn't have gone out. Like, it's a game where you decide.
Well, I think Genevieve had to leave Teeny out. Also, has to understand that if Genevieve did tell her, it was just common knowledge that she would have told Saul because Teeny and Saul were closer than Genevieve and Teeny. So even though they are both Lavo, it didn't necessarily preclude Genevieve from do something different than she did. Like, this is exactly what the game plan was and why she had to make the move. And Teeny's testimonial after the fact just kind of affirmed that Genevieve made the right move for her game.
Yeah. Like, oh, you're not going to tell your number one ally we're voting him out? So, yeah, she says in Genevieve's testimonial in her little one-on-one, she's like, I didn't come in here wanting to have any emotions, but I'm starting to feel emotions. Like, Teeny is one that slipped through the cracks. Probably all those, I'm a scarecrow. Look at my patchwork jeans. I guess it worked. And people didn't find her as annoying as I did.
I really don't mind Teeny too much, honestly. Like, she clearly has her or like irked by somebody. She's not irrational in her response.
Yes. Not irrational in the response at all.
Is that all you heard?
Yes. You're not irked by somebody, not irrational in her response. I
Yeah,
think
so I was gonna say like Teeny has her quirks and does some like slightly annoying things, but she seems to be an overall like decent person with a decent grasp on like how to socialize, how to play the game, and just is a fairly steady player.
yeah, if I was on this island, I would view Teeny as somebody I could use to advance my game. I mean, maybe that's how Genevieve feels, but also felt connected to her after, a couple jokes here and there. But
Mhm.
Teeny is never going to have like a plan of her own. You know what I mean? Like she just kind of smiles and goes along with whatever people want to do and just kind of wants to be liked. So I think if you show her a little bit of like, oh, you're so cool, like we're good, that goes a long way. And I think a couple smart players have used that to their advantage so far.
Yeah, but it's not to that obnoxious stage like Andy where you have to like
Yes.
overtly like
Oh, coconut.
yeah, like
Oh, you're the master of smashing cookies.
you just be genuine and nice to her, and that builds equity. It's not like you have to do this like outlandish like pomp and circumstance, like like roll out the red carpet and do a dance.
Yeah. So enough shitting on Teeny. Basically, they talk it out. Teeny realizes she's playing with emotion, doesn't know how to shut it off. Genevieve wants to shut off her emotions, has done a good job of it, but Teeny kind of slid in through the cracks. Now, I was just thinking, like, it got out that it was Genevieve's plan to get Saul out, right? And it only got out because Rachel let it slip to Sam, who wanted to stir some shit up because he was feeling on the bottom. So he went to Saul and he was like, it's going to be you. So if without all of those things, do you think it would have gotten out that like Genevieve is the plotter? Or maybe she could have just continued being a silent assassin without having to do all the damage control and getting that target.
That's a tough one to answer because I think eventually it always gets out. Like if you're a good enough player, you're going to have to make sure it's known, right? So like I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing for Genevieve to have been exposed because that does show that like she's made some moves, and that's how you validate your resume, right? Like we go back to those players who have done things, but it's still perceived that they're being pulled along. Well, now Genevieve doesn't have to like fight that fight if she does continue to advance. So I think eventually it would have been discovered that she was behind these moves, but I think Sam probably like expedited the process a little bit.
Yeah. Well, and to your point, it's like, can you show your homework at tribal council, or is it beneficial to have these checkpoints where you're like, that was me, everyone knows it, that was me, everyone knows it, versus just like, voila, I'm the man behind the mirror.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Andy and Genevieve start talking. Obviously, she's looking for allies, realizes there's a target, and they start talking about Tuku, right? There's 4 Tukus left in the game. Gabe, Kyle, either one of them would be a good choice. Andy goes to Sam to kind of talk about that plan, and he's like, yeah, but Genevieve's scary though, right? And Andy is just loving this new feeling of power. He is just rambling for quite some time about how he's a spider in a web, deciding which head he gets to bite off of. He's pretty high on himself at this point.
Yeah, like I've used the word obnoxious a couple of times, and I should have just saved all my obnoxious words for Andy. Like I put a quote down that he said that was just like it bothered me to no end. It's he says he is the smiling assassin, and only he can see the whole game.
Oh my God.
It's like just these crazy delusions of grandeur. It's like this is how sociopaths end up being like.
Yeah. You're the guy that cried on the beach day 3, right?
That's his legacy now because he's completely changed in the 15 days since then.
I've grown so much. And he's the type of player that's going to want to get votes for $1 million for his journey. He's like, you saw me day 1. I cried. I threw out my game plan, but I learned. I adapted. And then I started assassinating everybody. And
With a
meanwhile,
smile.
yeah. And meanwhile, everyone's like, no, that's not what happened, Andy. You did cry. You shat your pants. You sucked your thumb on the beach. And then we dragged you to the end because you suck.
Yes, that is exactly how it's played out. My dog is chewing. Can you hear it?
I can't.
You can't? 'Cause
No.
I can. I got her.
Good.
Yep.
So basically, Andy also had the annoying quote of loyal to the soil. He turns to Kyle and he's like, yeah, I've got a saying. I'm loyal to the soil because once I'm loyal to you, it goes into the soil. And I was kind of like, what? Like, I get what you're saying, but also just makes no fucking sense. And it's not a saying, you know?
Wow, the algorithm must have told him to say that.
Yeah. Beep, boop, malfunction. So yeah, he's feeling great about himself. And everyone heads over to a reward challenge. So they're randomly divided into teams of 3. Essentially, they have their hands and feet bound by handcuffs by the sides of them. They have to slither through sand, pushing a ball with their head over a couple humps and then getting it onto a mat. 3 players have to do that. And then once all 3 players do that, then they take turns rolling the plank down or rolling the ball down a wooden plank, fitting it into a hole, kind of almost like, I don't know, bowling meets fucking that shuffleboard. I don't know.
Yeah.
It works.
Good explanation. Yeah, it had to sit on top of a perch, right?
Right.
Did you have a specific moment during the challenge that stood out to you?
I did. And I think I know exactly what you're going to say. Is it the strategies that the different players use to push the ball forward?
Yeah, can we say it together on the count of 3?
Yeah.
All right.
1,
1, 2,
3.
Andy licking it.
Yeah. I was going to say Andy biting it and throwing it over. Yeah. Ridiculous.
My 11-year-old's like, why is he doing that? There's so much sand on his tongue.
There's so
Like,
much.
yeah.
There's a million ways to do this, and he chooses like the weirdest way. Again, the AI programming just malfunctioned.
So bad. So anyways, right away so you had teams of 3, it was evident from the jump that there was one team that was totally stacked, and it wasn't even close. You had D-Bird's girl Rachel,
Yeah.
you had Kyle the Comp Beast, and
Yep.
then you had the sports reporter Sam, all on the same team. And it was like every other team's just going to get routed. Anything physical, if there's a puzzle at the end, maybe there's a chance. But I mean, the challenge played out as anticipated once I saw the teams.
Yeah. And Kyle was the first to go on that team. And immediately I was like, oh, that's the way to do this challenge. Like he just naturally did it the way that I thought I would have as well. I don't know if you put yourself
Like
in their
no
shoes.
mouth?
Yeah, no licking the ball forward. Like Andy was basically making out with the ball. Genevieve was blowing kisses and like literally trying to blow it over the hill. I'm like, what the fuck are you people doing? Like Kyle had it kind of on his shoulder and he's just
Yeah, it's just
and he's just inching forward as fast as he can with it kind of trapped on his shoulder. I was like, this makes a lot of sense. And every single person, if you noticed, on that team did the same shit. Rachel did the same thing, lapped the other people who still weren't done with the first round. And then Sam was kind of a beast. He was just like, bap, and then just knocked it all the way forward. Instant kill.
Right. And even like when it came down to like the more like fine motor stuff, like rolling the ball down the ramp, They
Mhm.
had the same strategy. It was a two-hand gentle roll. They made the adjustments. Yeah. So one, I think Kyle going first set a good example for the team.
Yeah.
Two, all those people are smart and they're like, oh, this works. Let's not mess with it. Let's do the same strategy.
Yeah.
And I mean, it was a rout.
And some of the other teams looked over and they're like, "Oh shit, yep." And then when they tried to do that, they did better as well. That's when
Yeah.
they fucking just do whatever Kyle's doing. That's the new mantra for games.
Yeah.
And then they Rachel, like it took her a couple times, but she hit it pretty fast. Kyle was up next. He did a few more than she did. Got it, not bad. Sam was like, "Nice touch, buddy." kind of like rooting him on, like, "Oh yeah, go ahead," talking to him like a toddler. And then Sam, whoosh, one shot, dead. So they finished before anyone even got a chance to shoot. So fucked the entire competition up.
Yep. But it was just a reward challenge. So it
Yes.
wasn't like immunity was at stake or anything, but they got to go out and they got to eat together. And full circle moment for your girl, Rachel. She finally got her rice.
She got her rice, and Sam gets to try new fruits. I don't know what the hell this guy's been doing all his life, but basically they're like, "Oh, what don't you recognize here, Sam?" And he's like, "This. What's this one called?" And they're like, "That's a kiwi, buddy." They literally was like, "It's a kiwi,
Breaking
buddy."
news. Sam's a Kiwi guy.
And he's like, okay. I like pineapple better than kiwi. Like, okay. How weird is it to be like late 20s, 30s, and not know what a pineapple or a kiwi tastes like?
So
How's that work?
I've had a couple students who have had this thing called ARFID, which is avoidant food restrictive intake disorder. And
of course, there's an acronym for it.
They would only eat certain things. Like one kid would only eat plain noodles, and like so the whole goal was like, hey, let's just introduce new foods. Like no one could turn down an In-N-Out burger, right? We're in California, you got to do it. So like, I believe it just because I've seen like a couple examples of people who are very just like beyond picky eaters, but like medically like have gotten to this point where they will only eat certain things. So it's not outlandish to me, but you typically don't see that when someone's almost 30 years old.
Yeah. Like it feels a little like by now you should have got it.
Yeah.
Like,
at some point you're like,
not once. No one forced you to have a pineapple by now.
Yeah. Like not even as like a pina colada garnish,
Yeah.
nothing.
Or like, he plays sports, right? Like
Orange slices.
nobody on your team is going to be like, "Wait, what'd you just fucking say to me? I'm bringing a pineapple next practice,"
Yeah.
Like that's something that gets out. They're like, "You've never had a pineapple?"
Well,
I don't know.
And I don't know if my family's just weird, but we always had like fruit salads and stuff. Like we just throw grapes and melons and berries in there and like, boom, that's your fruit salad. And during summers, that's all we would eat. It's like not all we would eat, but like that was a staple.
It's great. Yeah. Nice, light, breezy summer food for sure. Sometimes like when I work out and I'm like, "Oh, do I want to go home and slam an entire Little Caesars pizza?" No, this is my healthy day. This is like next gen D-Bird. So I go to Safeway and I pick up like just a canister of fruits, blueberries, strawberries, pineapple, just all mixed in together. And then that's my dinner. I'm like, "Oh, I'm crushing."
Yeah. Side note, my dad and I, when we would work out together, we used to do two things. One, he'd say,
"Suck and fuck."
No,
okay.
Not even a little bit. I said my dad.
Okay. Your daddy? What'd you and your daddy do?
We would earn a milkshake because
Okay.
you had to reward yourself. And then we would hang our arms out the window and drive the bar scene. Just to let it was fishing, let the ladies know what we were working with. We go real slow.
Oh, I love that.
Strip of bars. And so
do you see this?
That was
this
the vibe.
Grade A beef.
Crank that window down, plop it over, boom. Ah,
I love that. That's fun.
no one else did.
I can't imagine. I mean, I'm also a delusional person who was like in high school making mixtapes from songs I burnt off of Napster, specifically with the idea of if I bump this in my Hagen's parking lot, the grocery store parking lot, in front of a bunch of other high school girls, they're gonna fall in love with it because I had Rough Riders. That's pretty cool, right?
Oh yeah.
They're gonna see
Stop.
me and be like, "That guy's fucking cool. Let me in."
Yeah, that is cool. I once saw you outrun a bus, but I think you were in college at that time.
I was in college at that time. Very fast. Still am.
Yeah, not as fast as the contestants on Survivor when they're coming up with their next game plan.
They sure aren't. Yeah, basically, Kyle was talking about, well, it's kind of me or Gabe. And everyone's like, yeah. Sam and him are just strategizing. And then they're like, what if Gabe wins immunity? Then who? It's like, well, Genevieve's scary. Everyone can agree on her, right? Meanwhile, Rachel's just kind of listening. She's like, let the boys talk. Then she gets Sam one-on-one, which I don't know how this happens. You're on a sanctuary. There's 3 of you. What's Kyle doing when they're talking? You know what I mean?
I don't know. But again, Rachel just really kind of showed out in this like immunity or not immunity rewards like scenario where she didn't say too much. She took it all in. You could tell she was agreeing with them, but also saying like, like Gabe's tough, but Genevieve's really bright. So like she had her options open. I thought she was just thinking through things really nicely.
Yeah, I loved the way she was thinking about it too. Like she's actually very impressive when you hear the way she's thinking about everything. And when she was one-on-one with Sam, she actually called him out for like, what the hell, man? I told you, and the first thing you do is run to Saul. What the hell? And you notice how Sam just completely like deflected. He's like, yeah, but also here's this future. I want to work with you,
Yeah.
And she was just kind of like, I'm here to listen. I'll let the boys talk. And ultimately, I'll just decide whichever way I want to go.
But Sam, it's also easier to work with you if you don't just tattletale right away.
Yeah. Her exact quote was, every opportunity I give to Sam to not lie to me or screw me over, he still does.
Yep.
That's what it's been.
Yeah. So one thing that Kyle said that stuck out to me is like, who's strong the whole time, but Kyle, when he presented Gabe as an option and Rachel was just listening in, he said, it's I strike on him or he strikes on me. And I thought that was kind of a poignant thing. It's like he sees the writing on the wall that eventually at some point, if he's there and Gabe's there, it's going to be an issue. And Gabe probably has more influence and sway of like Sue and Caroline. Yeah. So he probably has to strike first.
Pretty much has to. Yep. And I love that he picked up on that too.
Mm-hmm.
And meanwhile, back at camp, Andy goes across the aisle to Sue and says, first thing she says to him, I wrote this down because like, oh my God, can you not think for yourself? She says, I'd love to hear your thoughts because you're probably a genius at this.
Yeah. It was difficult. I think people just automatically think the weirdos are smart. Like that's all that could come from that. My dog's chewing something. Un momento.
Okay. So basically, Sue, Andy are talking. She's like, I don't have any thoughts of my own. Why don't you tell me how to play this game? And he's like, well, funny you asked because I'm a bit of a mastermind. So he goes up to her, tries to talk about how, we're partners. I see you as a partner. Basically he's just saying the word partner over and over to Sue. And she's like, And then, he does do something smart. And I think anyone could have done this. but he picks up on the fact that Sue plays with her emotions and she hates Kyle. Hates him. It even showed a little montage of all the times she said she wanted to fucking kill Kyle. And because he wrote my name down, get the fuck over it. You know? You can't be flexible in this game.
It's pretty ridiculous. Yeah. So my note during this whole scenario, I just took down 3 or 4 words. Andy transforms to Gabe. Like he just wanted to use Sue and marionette her all the way to the end because, again, like to your point, Sue does not think for herself. She's got a one-track mind. She got her name written down one time and she's had this vendetta she can't shake ever since.
There's no flexibility in such a game. It's like, this is the only person I need to get out because they put my name down once. He's not even the biggest threat to her game.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you see her being like, oh, how many times do we have to hear about how he's poor? Oh, I'm a family guy. She's like making fun of him because he wrote her name down.
Yeah. And it's like, it's really admirable that this kid went through foster care and poverty and now he's raising a family. And it, like every conversation he has is about doing the right thing and doing the right thing for his family. Like, why would you bag on that?
Dude. And Andy just, Gabe's her and he's like, I heard him say that he views you and Caroline as Tweedledee and Tweedledum. And then it cuts to her saying like, Tweedledee and Tweedledum, fuck you, you fucking fuck. And I'm like, how do you believe him? One-track mind.
One-track mind. Yeah.
Yeah. So he gets her all riled up and gets her on his side. As evil as it is, I think it was good for his game to toss the target. The other people that are sitting around the campfire who didn't go to Sanctuary are speculating about what they might be talking about. This is where Gabe realizes that, it's going to be me or Kyle. So he's kind of like painting the target on Kyle's back and is like, man, if he doesn't win, like we got to get him out because that's the only chance we have. And then Genevieve pops in and she's like, yeah, I hate to say it. If he was sitting there at the end, I'd vote for him,
Yeah.
Which is also smart. It's like anybody but me. Yeah, that guy. I'd vote for him.
Exactly. Like, I think sometimes that's the best tactic is you wait for another name to get thrown out and then you're like, oh yeah, that could be it. Like just to like validate somebody else's thought because whatever that thought is, as long as it's not you, is an all right thought.
And I've heard, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I'm just saying I've heard other Survivor players talk about it where they're like, I don't want to be the first one to throw out a name, but as soon as the name's out there, I can latch onto that and pounce on it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just a smarter way to do it.
And Genevieve really didn't have enough equity built up to throw out another name and have it be well received because her new number one, Teeny, was clearly going through some big emotions where like she felt on the outs. And so like I think if Genevieve had jumped forward, Teeny would have instantly ran to whoever that was just to shake Genevieve out of there or like put the target on her. So I think Gabe did exactly what he had to do. Genevieve did what she had to do. And then the plan that Kyle, Sam, and Rachel kind of came up with at Sanctuary like made sense. I think everybody's moves made sense other than
for
Sue's.
them in the game.
Yeah, for them in the game.
Yeah, other than Sue's. Yeah, totally. And so Sam comes back from Sanctuary, goes beelines to Teeny and Andy and says, we have a plan. It's Gabe. And I love the way he framed this. He's like, there's a lot of people, searching for footing in this game. Why don't we find footing together? And then you see like Teeny like, against all odds, I like Sam. I want to work with him. And I'm like, that's my boy. That's my boy. That manipulation, that $1 million sportscaster smile, it worked.
Yes, it did. But also, like, he has this revelation that, like, when you lose power, like, you have to be able to be charming and transparent and open and honest. And I think this ability to like recognize and then rationalize and make the pivot and actually follow through with the change in game plan is pretty impressive from Sam.
Yeah, shows good adaptability. Yep. And then smash cut to nighttime. Everyone's kind of laughing around the fire. They just played a game, which I'd be very interested to learn what game they're all laughing at. Sounded fun. So Survivor players, when you see this, inevitably let us know what game you're playing in this episode. But Teeny is kind of sitting by herself, a little withdrawn, just like, I'm not feeling it. And then you hear in the interview, she's saying she's feeling low because she mourns the loss of relationship with Genevieve, which somehow sends her into a spiral about her identity issues, feeling like she can't fit in a binary man or woman world, missing her friends back home that make her feel liked and wanted. And then on top of all of this, as she's having a crisis, embers fly onto her bag and burn it half to a crisp.
Yeah. Rough go.
What a night.
Yeah, I felt bad for Teeny. I've never lived that life, obviously, but like I feel like we've all felt on the outs in one way or another at some time. And when you have less people to find commonality with, it's got to be even more difficult to work through those situations. So I can't totally empathize, but I definitely sympathize for where she's at and how she's feeling based on like her self-identity and like then being on an island with people who probably have no idea what that's like, or, you know, might not even have the same connections to people going through what Teeny's going through.
Totally. That must feel, isolating for sure. And then on top of that, like all of the internal pain, then the physical part of the bag. Oh, I'd be so pissed.
Yeah.
But on a positive note, they turn it around and say, you know what? Kind of put a fire under my butt, wink, wink, pun intended, and said, now's time to really start playing, now I'm going to start playing. It's like, oh, you could have played from the beginning, but sure. Yeah. Start now for sure. Yeah. So they go to the challenge and Jeff has a bag of rice in front of him. It's the rice negotiation. And, they go back and forth. Oh, it has to be 4 people sitting out. No one wants to sit out. And then what they end up doing back and forth, give up all the shots in the dark, is kind of, Jeff, would you accept this? Rachel didn't have one to give, so she's like, yes, let's do this one for sure. And then Sam, meanwhile, is the only holdout. He's like, I don't love that. And Jeff kind of talks to him about it. He's like, yo, what's going through your head, Sam? I see a pause. And he's like, well, yeah, it's easy to give up a shot in the dark when you are on the top. I'm on the bottom. And meanwhile, Gabe's like, bro, like, yeah, but also you have your vote. And he's like, nobody wants to vote with me. You're leaving me out of it. He's like, but okay, well, your vote, but also like your challenge, you could be good at challenge. Like, you just sit out, bro. And finally, faced with this impossible situation, Sam's like, fucking all right, man. Like, I'm not going to keep rice from 8 people. Jeff said, so Gabe convinced you? And he's like, sure.
Yeah, I mean, it was an impossible position, right? Because if it's 7-1, it's like you withhold rice, then you've signed your ticket back home. Like you're getting voted out if you screw that up, or if it's not.
We can get Genevieve next time, but fuck this guy. I'm hungry.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So like, it wasn't that Gabe convinced him; it was that he realized that he was in a position where he couldn't win, and so he had to put himself at a disadvantage. And it's the same disadvantage. I fundamentally disagreed with this, and I still did it for the community.
A couple people did say, thanks, Sam, for giving in to our whims. But also, that only goes so far, right? How many times have we seen it where, you get this advantage? Like Saul, he's like, I'm going to save your life, Rachel. But when it's not beneficial for her to save his, you're gone. He was gone like a week later. So while it is impossible and you don't want to have a target put on you for not going along with it, at the same time, thanks, Sam, for letting us. Doesn't get you shit. You know?
And it's not, there's like security down the road and being grateful for him in the moment aren't mutually exclusive. Like, you could be thankful that Sam acquiesced and gave up his shot in the dark and then still play the game down the road. It doesn't mean that you've saved yourself a week or that you're indebted to him if you're another player. Like,
right.
Just the reality of the situation is he had one choice he could make, which was go with the rest of the group. And everybody in the group is going to be grateful for him, like caving, but also not continue to see that as, something that weighs on them moving forward.
Right. Like the vote's going to be the vote, even though you have a belly full of rice.
Yeah.
And Gabe did claim that he made Sam do it later. I was like, no, you didn't. Like, it's obvious. And Sam was smart enough to be like, no, it wasn't. He didn't call Gabe out hard in front of everyone like he could have. Like, no, it's not this fucking guy. Like, I just have to, I think he was smart in being like, sure, kind of sarcastically, and like just putting an end to Jeff weirdly giving credit to Gabe, and then later Gabe trying to claim credit himself for forcing Sam's hand.
Yeah. That's how I know Sam's a good dude. It's like he just kind of knows when to fold his hand. Like, he's not going to push too hard. He's not going to go out of his way to like make a point or a stand that doesn't need to be made. But like, yeah, he'll come back and he'll say, I fundamentally disagreed with this, and this is why I did it. He won't contest that like he was bullied or pressured or convinced by anybody, but that was the situation.
So before we get into the challenge, I got to ask you, DJB. So shot in the dark, for those who don't know, it's every player starts out with this at the beginning of the game. And what happens is if you're feeling like you might be on the bottom, if you feel like the vote might be coming towards you and that people just lied to you and, you're like, okay, the numbers are against me. In newer Survivor, they allow you to play a shot in the dark instead of voting, which gives you a 1 in 6 chance of being safe. So they'll roll a dice or whatever they do to say, are you still in the game? It happened once where a shot in the dark did save somebody for another week. It was awesome. I just don't see it that big of a deal, to be honest.
No,
giving up all the shots. That I was going to ask if you thought it like mattered at all.
No, because I mean, the odds of using the shot in the dark, I think, are really low. And then you have a 1 in 12 or a 1 in 16 chance of the shot in the dark actually working.
Yeah.
Beyond that. So like, I don't know that I would ever play it unless I knew there was absolutely, 5-1 votes stacked against me or something like that. Because I'd rather keep my vote.
And later on, in Tribal Council, not to get too far ahead, but Andy puts it this way of this is a tool for people who are on the bottom to throw some uncertainty into the mix for people going against you. I mean, that's really all it is like, okay, everyone's going to vote on me. I'll just tell them to their face, I'm playing my shot in the dark. So there's always a slim chance that one of them could go home if they don't not put their votes on me.
Right. I think it's probably a better play when there's like 7 people and the votes are going to be 3-4 or something like that. It's like when it's going to be super stacked, you just have one other person throw a random vote. It's no big deal.
Yeah, so I was kind of like, Jeff got really excited. Everyone got really bummed out later. And I was just like, I kind of don't think I'd care. It's the odds of it being successful are so low. So they give it up. They get a bag of rice. Everyone, that'll be waiting for them back after the challenge for them to stuff their faces. Challenge time. This time around, they're balancing on a balance beam barefooted while holding a tray with a ball on it. And then basically everyone makes it through the first round. It's whoever, you can't let the ball drop. Last one with the ball wins. Everyone does fine balancing one ball. Second round, they add a second, which gets a lot of people out. And then third round, 3 balls. The wind is whipping. It's like, whoosh, and Jeff even calls it out. His shirt is like moving and stuff. I'm like, how does anyone not just have all their balls fall off? You know?
Glad you said that with a straight face.
Well, Jeff did point to Sam and say, Sam's balls are moving.
2 balls. I did like how Sam had positioned his body, like he wasn't standing like straight facing towards Jeff, and I was wondering if that was a way to like use his back to block the wind a little bit.
Yeah,
it didn't work, but I right away I was like, oh my gosh, Kyle's a statue. Like this dude is locked in, and you could tell like really when the contestants were in a tough spot is when their balls started separating from each other.
Yes. Yeah. On either side, that's recipe for disaster.
Right. Because you can't recoup it because, a move to save one is a move to damn the other.
Yes, exactly. That would be stressful.
Yeah.
But I picked up on, I didn't see Sam. I saw Kyle, the way he was standing. And I really liked that too. He was like a statue and he kind of had his hand out like this, like kind of bent over at a 45-degree angle. Yeah, it was successful because it was him and Sue at the end, and he ended up lasting.
Yep.
Young
for
Sue.
the fourth immunity. And I was just thinking, like, this was just like when I used to serve at a restaurant, serve tables.
Yeah.
I mean, you're holding it right there, and like if have you ever worked at a restaurant?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah, like the different positions to hold and like exactly where you could find your balance, and just him being locked in at that 90 right away. I was like, okay, this guy's probably bust a few tables in his day.
Yeah. Yep. For sure. I've definitely like done that thing where you hold the tray and there's like 10 glasses on it and you're like, whoa, So
for sure.
I was getting a little flashbacks during that challenge.
Did you ever drop?
Oh yeah.
Oh, you did.
I did. And it was like, well, it was a long table and just a huge family, probably like a 16 top or something. And I was trying to carry more waters than I should have. Probably just should have switched it up, but I was like, I can do this. I'm going to do all of them. And yeah, just right on the ground.
Yeah. I don't think I ever dropped a tray. Not in front of the house, maybe in back of the house when I was unloading or something like that. But I used to be able to do like 10 wine glasses in one hand, and I've got these little small Trumpian hands. And then I was able to stack on top of the tray too.
Wow.
Used to be all right at my gig. So anyways, Kyle wins the immunity challenge again. Everybody back at camps thinking like, oh my gosh, well, Kyle's won. Are we just going to go Gabe, or are we going to put the vote somewhere else? And I thought that was kind of interesting. Like, Gabe's a play now. Kyle no longer is. So we knew our sanctuary buddies weren't ever going to vote Kyle because they were locked in 3 tight. But I think everybody else was kind of thinking like, if Kyle doesn't win, he's got to go.
Yeah.
And Gabe's plan to like plant the seed is gone. Genevieve's plan to hitch her wagon to Kyle is gone. So
yeah, and I think it was very apt, right, where they're like, well, we got to get somebody from Tuku out because there's 4 Tukus, and Gabe's kind of the head of it. Let's do that, or Kyle. Like those are the 2, right? You got the challenge beast and you just got this strategic threat. And meanwhile, Gabe in his interviews is feeling pretty confident. He's like, we've got 4 Tuku. We get Genevieve out this time. Then these idiots, how could they not see it? Like he's saying we have 4 Tuku. How could they not see it? And then meanwhile, they're all talking about how they got to get out Gabe because he's a Tuco.
Yeah. Honestly, this is like the first faux pas I think my girl Caroline has made.
Oh, tell me more about that.
Well, because she talked to Andy, first of all, which dumb. But then she was aligned saying, yeah, we got to get Gabe out because right now it's going to look like Gabe is making all the decisions and I'm riding his coattails. And if I'm perceived as riding Gabe's coattails, then I'm not building a resume for myself. So I need to get Gabe out now. And she didn't tell Sue because we know Sue's gonna emotionally just spiral and tell Gabe right away and blow it up. So like, good on her not telling Sue, but I question if getting out Gabe at this point made more sense than waiting a week. I think you could have got Genevieve out, waited a week, and then you could have made your play on Gabe once you clearly had the numbers.
Honestly, I agree with you 1,000%. I think people would have been looking for cracks in that 2Q4, and like that's it. Gabe is the crack. And then it would have hit harder as like a resume builder, right? Of like, we got Genevieve out because she's a threat. I was with Gabe on there. I wanted him out, but I couldn't do it yet. The next time around, we worked with these people who felt like they didn't have anyone to work with and got my biggest rival out.
And it would have looked even more impressive because you would have just been able to theoretically coast with those numbers, right? The majority's 5,
Yeah.
and you would have had 4 just in your tribe alone. All you would have had to do is pull 1. But no, at that point, you decided to make that pivotal move and get Gabe out. So I understand she's right that she can't just roll with Gabe to the end, but I think she was wrong with her timing.
I agree. And, Rachel, meanwhile, is just eyeing Genevieve. She said something funny. She said, Genevieve's the only one that's on to me. Like, she's too smart. I think she's on to me. Like, we gotta get her out. But also, like, she's smart, and she's like, I gotta go with the numbers too. And while she wants Genevieve out, she's just like, what is the order? Right.
Yeah.
And I also thought she had another cool quote where she said, I came into this game saying, I don't want to be the captain. I want to be the ocean. Meaning, like, I don't want to be sitting there with my hands on the steering wheel. I want to just direct the ship as I do from afar. Right.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was really smart. Just a great way to look at the game.
Yeah. And so, I mean, I thought it was pretty clear what was going to happen. The only other name that was thrown out, like you mentioned, was Genevieve. It was going to be Genevieve or Gabe. And it seemed pretty clear that Tribal was going to go Gabe.
I thought so too. It was kind of funny to see Gabe and Genevieve talk right before Tribal and be like, it's one of us. Good luck. This is where we really get a close-up of Sue's face at Tribal Council. Just the fucking dirt smeared all over her face. I wrote down in my notes, why is her fucking face so dirty? It looks insane. I looked it up on the internet. The internet's ablaze, and they say it's because she's using it as makeup for contouring. There's like, rub a little dirt in here. Now I have cheekbones, but it seeps into her, 22-year-old cracks in her face. And just, it's just a dirt line now. What are you doing? What is that?
Is that a real thing? Was
Yes.
she seriously using it for contouring, or is that just like the internet rumor?
There's no part where she confirms it, but there's like a former survivor, Carolyn, actually. I don't know if you remember Carolyn from a couple seasons back. She's talking to Carson on a podcast, and she's like, yeah, she's using it as makeup. She's using the dirt as makeup. And you look closer, and it's like, yeah, it's right here on the cheekbone. Like, she did this on purpose. Nobody else's face is dirty other than fucking Sue's, who's like doing it on purpose.
Well, it doesn't make me like her anymore.
just a strange lady. I dislike her for her gameplay. So it's not your looks, it's your personality. But because I don't like your personality, now I see the things that you choose to do with your face, and I have feelings about them. So there's that.
Sounds like you have big feelings.
I just talk passionately. I don't feel anything. All right.
Sad.
So Jeff starts the conversation. He says, kind of in general, what does it take for someone to be part of your community, right? Survivor is a community made up of smaller communities. And he says, what's the criteria for someone to get asked into the community? And Teeny basically was like, just don't be Rome. you saw how extra he was. You saw like he was doing all this extra shit. You're like, I'm just don't do that. And you can be part of our crew. It's like, yeah, fuck that guy.
Yeah.
That was a funny moment. Everyone looks miserable. It's super wet.
That's what I was gonna say. It's like when it looked like zoomed in on Genevieve's glasses. It's like she can't see through there.
No.
It's like you're driving through a torrential downpour. It's just like it looked brutal. And like Kyle's pants, the entire front was just soaked jeans. And that might be like my least favorite feeling in the world is having wet jeans. I don't even own jeans for that reason. It's like they get wet, I'm out. Like, yeah, it looked brutal.
It did. Genevieve's shivering the entire time. And you know what's kind of funny is they're freezing their asses off, but also so is the jury, right? Mm-hmm. You see Sierra coming through looking smoking in a dress, and just like, probably ruined that dress in whatever, downpour that they had in Fiji. And then Saul comes out in like an Aladdin vest.
I like that. It was
like the necklace and like the Aladdin sleeveless.
It was like one piece of a 3-piece suit and just looking ripped.
Yeah. And he's just like flexing on them haters, man. That was great.
Aladdin.
And then so Jeff talks about how, Gabe persuaded or cajoled Sam. Sam gives a political answer because he's a homie. But also doesn't allow Gabe to get any credit. All of the jury is flabbergasted that they gave up the shots in the dark, and Sierra's like, it's not worth it. Everyone's surprised. And the only other real interesting parts, I think that Carolyn said a funny thing. Or an interesting thing about like there's a lot of different ways to view threats out here. Mm-hmm. You got challenge beasts, you've got strategic threats, or you just got people that might not advance your own interests, refuse to work with you, that, will say that they're going to work.
Yeah. And again, Caroline's just being smart. Like from all different angles and aspects. And she is intelligent in the way that she's pointing out, like, somebody who wins challenges and solely wins challenges may not be as big of a threat as the person who's unable to cooperate or see reason in another person's argument. And I think that's like the biggest threat to her, because she needs to be able to get people who are like-minded, who think the same way, who could form new voting blocks with her.
Yes. Anything else stand out to you about Tribal? Any other notes that you had?
Not really. No, I think it was pretty clear cut. Gabe was going to go home. It was Gabe or Gabe or Genevieve. And it didn't seem like there was enough like sway behind the few people who wanted Genevieve out more to really move the needle. And so everybody was just going to fall in line and, not be the outlier who voted for Genevieve.
Right. So ultimately there was two votes cast for Genevieve, which I'm guessing are Gabe and Sue, and everyone else piled on Gabe.
Yep.
He's out. On his way out, he hugs Caroline and says, "Got a little snake in you, huh?" Cool, man. Cool.
It's a euphemism. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and then Andy's like, "Did he call you a snake?"
I didn't even see that.
Oh my god, yeah. Did he call you a snake? And then he does this. I don't. That's his way of relating to the world. The only other thing I wrote, only other note I put is I love the intense tribal drums playing while they're voting, and we should get like Gons to sample it or something.
Yeah, let's do it.
Dude, that'd be fire. We need to make a Survivor song. That's what
I was just gonna say the same thing. Oh, I am in.
I mean, that's clearly what needs to play at the beginning of these from now on.
Oh,
as we're almost done with them.
Yeah, exactly. We just weren't thinking.
No.
All right. Predictions for the next episode.
Predictions for next episode. I think I want to say Sam gets his bearings a little bit. Like it seems like he's kind of rebuilding some allies. He's, connecting with people in a way he needs to. I think Rachel's still going to be beautiful and fun and number one forever. Wow. What do you think?
Well, so based on the sneak preview thing, I wrote down that Sam, I think, will be even more on the outs, and that maybe Andy and Rachel team up because it shows Andy bragging like, I'm in the perfect position to crush it. And then Sam's looking like in a weird way at Rachel. He's like, I think she's got something in her pocket. And so I don't know if she finds an idol or what, but it makes me nervous that either Sam's getting paranoid or that Andy and Rachel have teamed up to form the super duo.
The super duo. All right. Well, we will find out next time on White Collar Reacts Survivor 47. Look forward to seeing you there, buddy.
Toodles.
Bye.